Managing container terminals is challenging, and it becomes more and more complex with the wide range of challenges. You want to automate processes, but need to stay flexible. Digitalization is key, but how can this transformation be managed, and how can we accelerate it? Labour and equipment costs must be kept under control. And what about terminal operations? Can they continue despite their CO2 emission? Decision-making under uncertainty is hard. The good news is, there is someone who can assist you with every problem concerning container terminals. Have you heard of Akvinet Port Consulting? Akvinet Port Consulting offers consultancy services to optimize operations for ports and terminals worldwide. In combination with long-term container terminal expertise, Akvinet offers a simulation and emulation software solution, which helps you stay on top of your projects at all times. You stay flexible, yet efficient. Smart software supports human ingenuity. Cost-benefit ratio remains top-notch. And you always have a top-level partner who advises you with every strategic decision you need to make, from process review, consultancy services, and operational optimization, to process simulation and terminal design. There is a ChessCon solution for every challenge. By the way, Akvinet merges knowledge with other industries as well.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen, depending on where you're joining us from. A very warm welcome to all of you to the workshop on digitalization of container ports to meet global supply chain challenges. This is the first workshop of International Conference on Logistics and Supply Chain Engineering, ICLSE2021. We already had the pleasure of listening to very insightful keynote speech. I have the chance to hear from the practitioner side of things. My job today is to introduce the panel of highly experienced experts we have for the workshop. And each of them have a profile that can span many pages. However, in the interest of keeping to time and to provide more space for our presenters to share their thoughts, I'm going to keep the introductions very brief. I sincerely hope that the panelists would not mind that. First of all, to provide an introduction to the workshop and to formally welcome our prominent panelists to the session, let me welcome Dr. Senevi Kiridena. Dr. Senevi Kiridena is a senior lecturer in engineering management at the University of Wollongong, Australia. He has a PhD in manufacturing engineering and management from the University of Queensland. Dr. Kiridena has multiple publications in logistics and supply chain management with over 15 years of experience undertaking numerous roles in academia and industry. Over to you, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Namal, for that generous introduction. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Again, hello, everyone. And let me start with thanking the organizing committee for allowing me to facilitate this workshop. And I'm sure the audience will appreciate the critical role played by seaports in terms of facilitating international trade, as well as enhancing the supply chain performance with respect to speed, efficiency, and flexibility. I also believe it is a testament to the recognition by the industry that we have been able to assemble this panel of eminent resource persons for this workshop. So I would like to warmly welcome the panel, including our eminent keynote speakers and all other participants, and acknowledge that their ongoing support towards the type of research that we undertake in this space, particularly by the University of Peradeniya in collaboration with the University of Wollongong here in Australia. And Namal will, however, introduce each panelist at the beginning of their presentation. So I'm not going to introduce each of them separately. So I'm going to quickly share my PowerPoint slides so that we could actually guide through the rest of the workshop. So as you would have been able to figure out going by the workshop program, we have a number of presentations lined up this afternoon, talking of in Sri Lankan time. And so Namal will be introducing each of them at the beginning of their presentation. But I think it is important for me to actually give you a quick snapshot of how we got to this point where we are having this workshop. The idea of logistics, cross-border logistic research came out of a workshop that we conducted in 2018 as part of POM's conference that we held in Sri Lanka. And one of the key findings of that workshop was there is a acute lack of research on cross-border logistics in Sri Lanka. Following that workshop, we commissioned a joint research initiative in early 2019 between the University of Peradeniya and University of Wollongong. And as part of that research project, we, after a comprehensive effort in terms of collecting some data from the Colombo port involving a number of stakeholders, we managed to present an interim report to the industry in 2020. And I should acknowledge at this point the strong support that we received from the key stakeholders, as well as their contributions to the study. And then what we are trying to do in this workshop today in relation to digitalization of container ports is another key milestone in this ongoing research project. So the workshop objectives, as you could have again noticed in the program, we are trying to basically address three key questions. How can digitalization support process improvement and productivity enhancements in the context of container terminals in particular? And then what are the key factors affecting the digitalization of ports, including enablers and barriers, and with a particular focus on the impediments to digitalization of ports in Sri Lanka? You would again appreciate the level of digitalization taking place in other parts of the world, going by the two presentations that we have already witnessed, right? So therefore, I think after the presentations from the panelists, we would be in a favorable position to assess where we sit in Sri Lanka in terms of our digitalization journey. And having recognized or having appreciated that level of digitalization that we have been able to achieve up to now, then our last task is to see if we can explore some ways of moving forward in that journey, and what would be the key priority areas for us to attend in the coming years or coming decades, if you like, right? So that with those objectives set out as a guiding frame, I would try to bring everyone up on the same page with a quick account of the landscape of port operations in Sri Lanka. And with any other port facility around the world, you would see that the basic logistics functions that are taking place in a port facility are pretty homogeneous, if you like, right? So we have all these core functions that need to be fulfilled as part of port operations. But when you look at the types of stakeholders involved, you could also already notice that there are a number of stakeholders with varied expectations, goals, etc., in terms of the requirements imposed by them on various parties involved in the port logistics, right? So you could see that the ones with the green ticks that we have identified there as the key stakeholders, I believe they are all represented in the panel in today's workshop, which is a very fortunate situation that we are seeing in relation to successfully concluding this workshop. But in terms of digitalization objectives and potential solutions, the literature is quite rich in terms of the benefits of digitalization, right? And we know that there is a whole raft of advanced technologies that are being touted as the solutions to addressing various challenges faced in the context of port logistics. As both of those keynote speakers actually highlighted, with the increasing scale of operations and with the increasing volumes of cargo being handled at port facilities, there is a real challenge in keeping up with the variation in commodities that are dealt with and making sure that smooth and even flows are maintained for all these different types of cargo that we handle. And in terms of tracking and tracing cargo, in terms of ensuring a positive experience for the port users, as well as for supporting decision-making, the role of tracking and tracing can be seen as another area of a challenge for particularly ports like in Sri Lanka. And likewise, we have a range of challenges that we could think of in terms of that we have to deal with and the potential solutions offered by advanced technologies. So that's a bit of a snapshot of what we would be focusing on in terms of technologies per se that might help us move forward in this digitalization journey. And then moving on to the actual adoption of technologies, we would like to see the challenges around technology adoption from those key stakeholders' perspective. Typically, in the literature, we look at technological adoption or new technology adoption from the supply side versus the demand side, as well as the attributes of the technology itself. And you could see that when you look at adoption from those perspectives, there are interactions happening across the board in terms of adapter organizations' perspectives and the organization to organization sharing of technology, know-how, etc. And then looking at the specific attributes of technologies themselves, and then the influence of the factors in the broader business environment. So aligning all these potentially contradicting or conflicting perspectives could itself be a real challenge for a country like Sri Lanka. So with that bit of introduction, now let me move on to introduce the format or the structure of our workshop today. So our first presenter will be Mr. Upul Jinadasa from South Asia Gateway Terminals. And I should mention here, for the sake of maintaining time, as well as in terms of potential backup as a technology. If the technology disrupts us, there could be a backup for making sure that the workshop flows smoothly. With those purposes, we have actually offered presenters the opportunity to record their presentations, and as a result, we have got a number of presenters submitted us the recorded presentations, and the others might be delivering their presentations live. So with that brief introduction, I would like now to pass it to Namal to introduce our first presenter.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kiridena, for that nice introduction to our workshop. So without taking much time, let me introduce our first resource person for the day, Mr. Upul Jinadasa, the Chief Operating Officer of South Asia Gateway Terminals. Mr. Upul Jinadasa has over 30 years of experience in the maritime industry, both in shipping and ports in Sri Lanka and also abroad. So he commenced his career as an IT expert, then he has moved into port and terminal operations. So currently he is the Chief Operating Officer at the South Asia Gateway Terminals, where he leads a team there to achieve several international awards that they have already achieved, and they have achieved also best-in-class productivity levels leading to those international awards. So let me warmly welcome Mr. Upul Jinadasa to deliver his presentation. Let's listen to the presentation.
Thank you very much for inviting me to be a panelist at this virtual forum today. I think the topic for today's forum, digitalization of container ports to meet global supply chain challenges, is very relevant and important to SAGT and also to the Port of Colombo. Let me give you a brief overview of the digital transformation of the Port of Colombo first. Digital evolution in the Port of Colombo began some time back. Our country was one of the pioneering countries embarked on a port digitalization journey way back in the 80s. SLPA was one of the few state enterprises deployed very expensive computer systems at that time. Our first official digital framework was launched in 1986 with the SILPRO initiative. Over 35 years have elapsed by now. Process and technology then have become obsolete. New technologies have emerged. Those are becoming much more adaptable and affordable. I expect this trend to continue at a faster pace in the future. Local ports and shipping industry have expanded digital footprints and made significant progress over the years, but we are yet to achieve the ideal level that we envisioned. Coming into SAGT, and then we were incorporated in 1999. We took over the former Queen Elizabeth Quay and we started operating that. And SAGT was built with a purpose to empower Sri Lanka's hub aspirations. We want to be the most trusted gateway in the Indian Ocean. Taking over a conventionally operated port terminal and transforming it into a digitally driven superhuman enterprise was a major challenge for us. Our focus was on going digital from the day one. Our digital strategy was based on some key elements. It was process driven, commercially oriented, key focus on an emphasis on the adoption of right technology, establish accuracy, standards, and discipline across all related data and processes. Take firm decisions for mutual benefit. Our efforts have triggered and fast-tracked the digital transformation of the local industry. We are very proud of that. Getting into SAGT initiatives, key digital initiatives. In 1999, we deployed the fully comprehensive digital terminal operating system at SAGT, and we established the UN EDIFACT standard EDI messaging with the stakeholders, and we deployed radio data terminal network within the SAGT so that all the data are captured on a real-time basis at the point of work, eliminating paper. In 2003, we launched our SAGT ePort e-commerce platform, and we supported the implementation of the single window implementation with Sri Lanka Customs. And in 2008, DGPS systems for the container tracking was implemented. That was the first of that kind of advanced interface the systems. In 2012, Sri Lanka Customs and SAGT implemented e-clearance facility. And we also designed and implemented a trilingual touch kiosk at SAGT Documentation Center, where the wharf clerks can serve the information needs by themselves. In 2013, e-delivery order by shipping lines was implemented so that we eliminated the paper-based delivery order. And SAGT and Customs implemented CDN, which is the boat note as well. And in 2018, digital paperless processing for invoicing for all stevedoring charges was implemented. And we joined the TradeLens, a blockchain-enabled global trade collaboration platform, in 2018 as well. And in 2020, we took a major step ahead and we implemented digital paperless delivery processing, including e-payments, averaging out transaction processing time less than 10 minutes from submission to EDA by email, where the customs house agents or the people who's processing, attend to the clearance of cargo can lodge the delivery order request online, and they can get the EDA printed at their godowns without any reason to come into the SAGT offices. Let me go into the challenges and opportunities that we are facing. And then the COVID-19 pandemic hit the industry very badly. We all know that. However, it also triggered some digital initiatives overnight at all ports in the world. Some things we were debating for years. We have realized overnight that we can do it easily. Global supply chains are evolving rapidly. Globalization phenomenon created lots of opportunities to the maritime trade over the last 2-3 decades. Advent of enhanced transport services and new and affordable technologies were the key enablers of the globalization in the maritime industry. The digitalization was driving globalization. So what made globalization possible was the digital the solutions and the ICT. Further advancement of technology and related facilities are driving digitalization at a very fast pace, making our lifestyles are much more different and convenient these days. Smartphone is the best example. We have all become digital with the using of the smartphones. However, the COVID pandemic has disrupted the globalization to a great extent. Trade patterns beginning to change. Nearshoring becoming a hotly discussed topic again. Technologies like 3D printing is fueling the fire. Demand for high transaction speed or productivity, accuracy and efficiency at reasonable costs expected to grow across the global supply chain. Traditional or conventional methods will not help ports achieve the expected service levels. Heavy focus on reduction of carbon emissions and achieving SDGs will continue. Tracking and optimizing energy consumption and reduction of waste within the end-to-end business process will require much more attention. I believe that it is important that we define specific standards and KPIs for port business processes, so that digital interfaces should be made the standard and traditional means as the exception. What is required now is to change our attitudes to face the global reality, build trust among the trade, enhance discipline and compliance, collaborate with each other, implement necessary administrative and legal reforms, come to a common understanding about digital priorities, and work towards a timeline to achieve specific milestones. Therefore, we will not have a choice but to embrace change if we are to sustain our port business. Faster you adopt, more opportunities you will have so that you can remain successful and competitive. Let me take you into disruptive technology. What is happening in the industry today? And the technological evolutions are disrupting most of the businesses, not only shipping. What happened to airline ticketing industry is a classic example. Most of us manage our own ticketing and hotel bookings on our own. No need for any third parties. Current shipping industry is also undergoing similar disruption these days. In some markets, online bookings outnumber manual bookings by a significant margin. 3D printing, when in full swing, is expected to disrupt the flow of material and finished goods. Novel IT concepts such as blockchain and internet cloud-based collaborative platforms will enable statutory and business communication seamless, timely, and accurate. You can build and enhance mutual trust through these platforms while eliminating any room for corruption and fraud. Evolution of 5G, high-speed, ultra-high-density video analytics, IoT, and artificial intelligence are other tools that will evolve widely. If adopted right, it will help analyze data and predict accurately to improve customer satisfaction, minimize service disruptions, and optimize energy, resources, and costs. Above technologies coupled with augmented reality and then virtual reality technologies mostly used in gaming could also be adopted to create digital twins to validate and simulate real situations or processes for continuous improvement and optimization. Let me talk about some autonomous solutions. All of us must prepare ourselves to face the reality. As I said before, the demand for high productivity, accuracy, and efficiency at reasonable costs are expected to grow across the global supply chain. In order to position your business to cater to the above demands, you have no choice but to embrace change. Increasing productivity and maintaining it consistently at reasonable costs while ensuring safety of people and assets are not easy. It's a major challenge for both. Airline and hospitality industry has already transformed into digital platforms. Almost all transactions are now done digitally. This transformation is now happening in our industry too. When this happens, current roles of all of us will change. Digital services will become the norm, with manual exception handling services such as global help desks. Sri Lanka could aspire to become one of the global support centers going forward. OCR scanning, while in motion, coupled with GPS, RFID, biometric, NFC, proximity identification with 5G high bandwidth connectivity options, makes container and truck identification accurate, seamless, productive, and cost-effective. Physical operations will also see changes. Remote controlled or fully automated ports are already in operation. Semi-automation to make current jobs much more convenient for people also now available. Automatic car parking technology, which we all know, is now applied to container yards. 6,000 containers could be stacked in a block with less than 3-minute retrieval time for each box. 20 moves per hour. Check out the box bay trial at DP World Jebel Ali. It's in the YouTube. Retrofitting autonomous technology solutions for existing equipment are also emerging. These solutions use 3D imaging and cognitive analytics with advanced LiDAR, radar, laser, and IR sensors coupled with video and data analytics software solutions. These technologies are becoming much more affordable now. Adoption of right technologies to create specific products or services to deliver value, meeting the expectations of relevant customers if the business is to remain competitive. Major challenges with technology also there. The cyber security and data protection will become a major concern. Certain ransomware attacks recently created havoc. You need to invest and focus heavily on systems and data security and resilience strategies as well. All the above will not define the end of the world for us. What we should do is to position ourselves proper to capitalize on these new realities and right skill ourselves and be ready to adapt new roles. SAGT is actively pursuing some of these new technologies to be implemented at our terminal very soon. And I'm coming into another very important aspect, which is sustainability. This is another important aspect will be the control of emissions as part of our sustainability initiatives. We are exploring alternative energy options and trying to cut down emissions. Converting our diesel-powered RTGs to hybrid battery-operated units have helped us save more than 50% of diesel consumption. Optimizing water usage and reduction of food waste are other initiatives we have already implemented. SAGT is the first terminal to publish sustainability report with specific details about our progress in achieving our sustainability goals. Ultimately, in order to do our business, we believe the environment should remain healthy for all of us. In conclusion, digital transformation is not a choice. We are on a race to become the best maritime hub in the Indian Ocean. We should offer better value than our competition if we are to realize our vision. We can make it happen only if we believe in digital transformation, believe in our abilities, think out of the box, learn from others' mistakes, but not blindly emulate them, adopt the right technology, and then create, communicate, and deliver unique value proposition to our prospective global customers. Let me sum up my presentation with a video clip showing how automated ports work. This will give you an insight into different solutions ports are exploring for automated service delivery.
Container terminals are dynamic. Entities where the speed is high and large cranes work side by side with people and vehicles in motion. Bigger but fewer calls mean new challenges for operations, and terminals need capacity and systems that in just a few minutes can be ready for full production. And shipping lines require high service levels and predictable turnaround times. Automation can make container terminals safer, greener, and more productive. Therefore, we're determined to deliver intelligent automation solutions that move more containers per hour at a predictable and steady pace from ship to gate. The use of IT brings real-time information about the operations and performance easily at hand in a centralized control room. In a modern terminal, the control room is the heart of the operations. It opens up for collaboration and planning between operations and maintenance staff and makes it easier to identify bottlenecks and take corrective actions. Intelligent automation, all gates and cranes can be operated comfortably from the central control room, which makes terminals safer and the working environment more ergonomic. The crane operators no longer need to sit in the cabins of the cranes. The clerks traditionally working at the gates and cranes also do their jobs safely for crew communication. STS crane automation and remote control of STS cranes are currently two major trends that are profoundly reshaping crane operations. ABB's intelligent automation enables fully automatic STS cranes, and the operators only need to handle a limited part of the cycle. Even for a very skilled and experienced operator, a skew pendulum can cause problems, especially at a high production speed. Automatic skew control dampens out the pendulum immediately, which increases productivity. On the land side, there's a lot of time to save if the vehicles are positioned correctly. Should a vehicle come in at an angle, the information is sent to the skew control, which sets the angle of the spreader to match the vehicles automatically. With taller cranes and drives, it becomes increasingly difficult for an operator to use the crane's full capacity and at the same time maintain the accuracy. ABB's system allows for fully automatic set-downs and pickups on vehicles. This way, more containers can be moved thanks to fast, accurate, and safe landings. By automating the handoff of containers from the crane to the vehicle using crane OCR, the right container finds its way to the right vehicle. However, automated handoff also enables optimized container flow and utilization of cranes and vehicles. The process becomes safer for people because they can be separated from the heavy machines. Additionally, the process becomes more efficient, information is always correct, and valuable time is saved in every human action.
I think we have a little bit of a sound issue with the video, so we'll try to come back to that one later. Until then, let me try to go to the next presentation. Thank you very much, Mr. Upul Jinadasa. That was a very informative presentation. Sorry that the video, we had a little bit of an issue, but we'll try to come back to that one. Your presentation was very insightful and very relevant to the workshop. So thank you very much for accepting our invitation and giving that presentation. So the next presenter for the day is Mr. Jagat Patirana. Mr. Jagat Patirana is an industry leader in logistics and supply chain. He is the Chief Executive Officer of EFL Sri Lanka. He is also serving as the Chief Administration Officer at EFL International HQ. He was a past chairman of the Sri Lanka Freight Forwarders Association, and he holds many other leadership positions in several logistics companies and associations. Mr. Jagat Patirana has been an enthusiastic supporter of the research work carried out by universities. So let me warmly welcome Mr. Jagat Patirana to deliver his presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here this afternoon at this very August gathering to share some of the experiences that I have had as a port user, being a freight forwarder, engaged in operations over 20 years. I wish to thank our good friends, Dr. Asela Kulatunga and Namal Pandaranayaka of the Peradeniya Engineering Faculty for having invited me to share my thoughts today. Thank you, gentlemen. To start with, I thought the best would be to find who are the stakeholders who are engaged with the port community that we are about to discuss about. There are key drivers for digitalization for various stakeholders. From a forwarder's perspective, the key stakeholders whom we have identified would be the shipping lines, customs, and landlord. In this instance, we have quoted SLPA, but there are other port operators as well, or you call them terminal operators in Sri Lanka. So from the shipping lines perspective, what we require is to enhance visibility by the digitalization process so that there's visibility for the forwarders and the customers. There are customers direct to deal with shipping lines, leaving behind the forwarders, but they all need to be having enhanced visibility. From customs, there is a seamless digital documentation process and a cargo movement process that we expect to be facilitated with this digitalization that we are anticipating. As a landlord from the SLPA and other terminal operators, the forwarders require cargo acceptance and handover, payments and other documentation managed without any interruption. If you look at the initiatives and the impact on forwarding with the adoption of digitalization, we would see this happening in different stages. So from a stakeholder of being a shipping line, the adoption has been very varying. Levels of digitalization has been varying at different intervals. Different liners have different levels of digitalization adoption. Some are ahead, whilst others need significant improvement. From a customs perspective, I think considerable development is happening at present. There was a slow start. We spent a lot of time, but there is a steady progress now, especially with COVID. There has been many lessons learned and greater level of digitalization that is being embarked on. From SLPA and other terminal operators, also we see gradual developments, and also with the COVID, there has been a lot of effort that is being looked at. There's much more that we could anticipate, but there's something happening. We need to also applaud the accomplishments. The areas for growth within the digitalization landscape are immense. But if you really take count of the good things that have taken place or undertaken and accomplished, I think we have something to be happy about. So if you look at the accomplishments, the submission of CUSDEC, we took a long time to get ourselves started off, but then we managed to get it done. And CUSDECs are possible to be uploaded into the system. But the area that needs to be improved is that still a wharf clerk still needs to present at the point with a copy of a completed CUSDEC in order to release the car. So this is something which is a snag which needs to be clear. We still can't depend on a digitalized 100% platform. Instead, we need to print a document. The signature bureaucracy is still there, so we need to get this sorted. Then another accomplishment is the ECDN. Process is established and working as per the requirement. But then again, for the forwarders, there is still a requirement of manual submitting of the CDN copies when you want to clear the goods. Another accomplishment, if you talk about manual manifest, has been more or less eliminated by adopting on the EDI process, right? Releasing the LCL cargo from an improvement perspective is still a nightmare. It's time consuming, there's no visibility, there's no warehouse management system that is in place. So we need to really look at that area, which needs a vast improvement as we see. So in this port ecosystem, or we call it the port community that is in existence, we need certain prioritized activities in the digitalization that should happen fast. So we have not seen the creation of a central documentation system thus far. Currently, different stakeholders are operating different online portals based on their requirements. This is all in silos, in isolation. They have their own platforms to which you log in and you submit your information. So what we aspire to have is something which is interactive, which will be a community where you can upload into one system and then share that information seamlessly within the portals, so that there is no need for duplication of uploading of information, and also delay things. And I need not say the inefficiencies involved in that. It's also important that visibility of operation within the port premises is also given to the customers, to the stakeholders, forwarders, everyone around. So in this first point which I made, the creation of a central documentation system can also get linked to the port operations, and they can share the information with regard to the LCL, let's say, for instance, as an example, if there's LCL deconsolidation happening at the port, the details are not available online. We don't see any movement or any identification of any cargo that has been restocked on an online portal. That's important for us to know. So then the efficiencies can improve. It is also important to know what's going around in the technological advancement. Most of the donor agencies who have funded the projects in digitalization perhaps would have done these studies, feasibility studies 3 to 4, 5 years ago or even more. So it is important that we keep abreast with the times and get to know what are the emerging technologies to stay ahead of the curve. So in a sense, I would like to also mention that there needs to be a clear leadership at a central level. The political will is already there, but we need someone to deliver what has been manifested in most of the political arenas or agendas. We do not see it happening yet. Still individual stakeholders are adapting to their own strategies, which is counterintuitive. So I think it is important that there's clear leadership at central level so that the correlation of all these activities could be done. We also need to change the mindset of the port and the port operators. They own infrastructure. They are the owners of properties, but they also should change the mindset to a more supply chain oriented facilitator and centralize their operations and create value for the stakeholders by giving the visibility so that the inefficiencies could be taken out. It's also important to learn from the best. We have very good relationships with Singapore and Dubai. I'm sure we can learn a lot from them. Get to know how they have developed. What are the facilities that they have that is being offered digitally to the stakeholders, and learn from those experiences and align our digital or digitalization towards those best operating ports efficiencies. I think I would rather stop at this. There are a lot of things that we can learn from the rest of the speakers. And once again, I would like to thank the invite that has been offered to me. And thank you very much. And I will be prepared to engage in a conversation, share more thoughts about what we have experienced and what we want to experience in this digitalization progression that we have embarked on. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jagatpatirana. That was a very succinct account of the digitalization issues that we face in Sri Lanka at the ground level from the point of view of port users. So that serves as a very good platform for our discussion later. Thank you so much. The next presenter we have lined up for today is Mr. Sunil Jaratna. Mr. Sunil Jaratna has worked in Sri Lanka Customs for over 30 years. At the time of retirement from Sri Lanka Customs, he was an additional Director General of the institution, a technical and operational advisor to World Customs Organization on time release study, Ms. Jayaratna is currently working in National Enterprise Development Authority as the chairman. So we have Mr. Sunil Jaratna who has joined us. Let's hear what Ms. Jayaratna has to say.
Okay, a very good evening to you all. Mr. Namal Bandaranaike, Dr. Asela Kulatunga, professionals, academics, governmental officials, private sector heads, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, I too would like to confer my sincere gratitude to Mr. Namal Bandaranaike and Dr. Asela Kulatunga in providing this invaluable opportunity to me. And thanks, Mr. Namal Bandaranaike, for your wonderful introduction as well. Despite you are very much aware about the role of customs, I'm going to give a little overview regarding the customs and who are the international organizations behind us, what are the private sector entities working with us in order to carry out a lot of modernization and digitization projects during last couple of years. Responsibilities of customs lies upon collecting tariffs and for controlling cross-border movement of goods, including animals, animal transports, personal effects, etc. As a result of organized crime and illegal cross-border transaction, same time customs has to take stringent action in order to control those things. The World Customs Organization is the key and international organization. Is an independent intergovernmental body whose mission is to enhance the effectiveness and efficiency of the global customs administrations. Including Sri Lanka Customs, its membership is 183, of which contribution to the global trade is 98%. Widely discussed theme during last couple of decades, which trade facilitation, which is the modernization, harmonization, and digitization of customs and other border procedures came to the scene before some decades. In view of this importance, WC has always process of developing various best border practices, tools, and techniques to enhance the efficiencies of global customs authorities. The World Customs Organization has identified some challenges, 21st century challenges, which matters for the free flow of legitimate trade, and which matters for the introduction and various modernization and innovative procedures. This prestigious forum is very much aware about this modern new logistic and supply chain models, changes in traditional trade patterns. As a result of all those modern trade transactions, the customs role has become very complicated. As I stressed you previously, as a result of transnational organized crimes and terrorist activities, growing concerns regarding the public health and the environment, again, the customs role has become very complicated at the border. You know, the role of the customs is not a standalone one. It's the collaborative or collective effort. There are a lot of participants at the border shipping agents, Ports Authority in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka Ports Authority is the landlord, and some other terminal operators as well, importers, exporters, customs brokers, banks, and other governmental agencies such as quarantine agencies, Sri Lanka standard institutes as well. Among those, customs is the key entity, most visible character at the border, who performs more than 75% of the processes. You can see various processes, the interventions at the pre-clearance stage, declaration processing stage, clearance stage, etc. As I explained you previously, in order to enhance the efficiencies of the world global customs family, World Customs Organization has introduced many best border practices. The whole world is in the process of implementing world most powerful trade facilitation agreement, that is trade facilitation agreement of the World Trade Organization. In view of the 98% contribution towards the global trade, WTO insists and recommends to implement various best border practices, from which some of which are elaborated during the course of this presentation. Time release study, risk management processes, automation. In Sri Lanka, we have automated system for customs data. This is the that is the automated process. And in line, there are some couple of processes: single window, use of non-intrusive cargo scanning devices, pre-arrival processing, coordinated border management, use of container tracking devices and smart gate, etc. In addition to that, some key processes such as port community system, shouldered by the Sri Lanka Ports Authority, and ASI Hub process, trade lanes by Sri Lanka Customs as well. Time release study. In this presentation, I'd like to share some lessons learned during the survey carried out by the Sri Lanka Customs, and what has been matters for the taking effort to modernize the processes, digitization of the customs and port processes. Risk management, another key requirement on that also recommends to adopt various digitization processes in order to get advanced data to manage not only the revenue risk, to manage the time aspect as well. Automation, Sri Lanka Customs, automated system for customs data process is shouldered by the UNCTAD, there's a UN organization. As our colleagues from the port terminals, Mr. Upul Jinadas and the other colleague mentioned, numerous measures has been taken during last couple of years for the modernization and digitization of port and customs activities. Especially the online submission of CUSTEC under EDI technology and e-payment portal has been in place for a couple of years. As a result of this COVID pandemic situation, as our colleague mentioned, Customs took numerous measures to automate paperless processes and carry out paperless processes as well. Some of them are issuance of ECDN and issuance of e-payment receipts, which could be paid from their own premises, not reporting to the customs. There are a lot to be done because some of the processes are still under manual processes. Single window, which is a key requirement under WTO TFA trade facilitation agreement as well. As we all are aware, single window is defined as a facility that allows parties involved in the trade and transport to lodge standardized information and documents with a single entry point. to fulfill the all import, export, and transit related regulatory requirement. The Sri Lanka Customs has taken initial steps to implement this invaluable process. Only thing, it will cost a very lot, and we are, as a result of this pandemic situation, Customs had to postpone this process, and we are in the process of seeking some international donor assistance to single window. We know that the developed countries such as Australia, Singapore, our German, and such countries, they adopt procedures having utilized this type of innovative and digital platforms. Use of non-intrusive cargo scanning devices. In port, Sri Lanka Customs has established a scanning process called Rapid Scan that is owned by, that has been implemented by one of the leading global companies called Rapid Scan. In view of the supply chain, tampering of the supply chain and the supply chain security, WCO, United Nations, and the WTO always insist to use non-intrusive cargo scanning, which is a kind of risk management tool as well. We can examine the designated cargo on a target base, not having examined all the volume of import cargo and export cargo as well. Pre-arrival processing is another key requirement as far as economic development, international trade is concerned. As we all are aware, the international trade is the key driver of global states. Pre-arrival processing, based on the data, advanced data, Customs can release the containers without having examined the cargo. Once the cargo is arrived at the port, it is very easy to process the cargo, release the cargo, because the cargo that is represent legitimate features, in the sense we can't release the illegitimate trade, the peoples who are doing organized crimes. The facilities, they are to facilitate legitimate trade. The other very much important aspect is coordinated border management. We are, as a result of this WTO trade facilitation agreement, we were able to get all the non-governmental agencies, private sector entities, Sri Lanka Ports Authority, and chambers to one platform that is called National Trade Facilitation Committee. When I was in the Customs, I was the head of National Trade Facilitation Committee Secretariat as well. As a result of coordinated effort, we were able to perform a lot of trade facilitation, modernization, and digitization activities. Use of container tracking devices and smart gates is another key requirement as far as expeditious release of the cargo is concerned. During my explanation on the time release study and our survey results, I'll explain the importance of use of container tracking system and what is the current situation of the port, at the especially at the new container gate, where the potential and very obvious barricade is visible. ASIHub trade lanes is a GIZ and UNCTAD process that is also in order to digitize maritime trade. One of the key entities, portions of national single window, where the Customs and other required regulatory authorities, Sri Lanka Ports Authority, can get advanced data as far as risk management are concerned, and also in order to facilitate the legitimate import cargoes. It is very much connected with the pre-arrival processing. we have come to an we have come to an agreement with the GIZ, German International Cooperation, and UNCTAD tri-party agreement. Now we are in the initial processes of that program as well. Sri Lanka Ports Authority in the process of developing port community system, which is very much popular in countries like Australia. That is also one key element of the single window to facilitate logistic and port facilities. Primary study, I thought it is very much important to share some data, what matters have been caused, what issues has been caused to expedite our digitization processes at the port, especially the customs processes. As we all are aware, time is money. One of our international experts mentioned, time is always associated with the cost. Time really studies the subject of World Customs Organization. They recommend to carry out this survey based on the very technical diagnosis system to get the results and identify the bottlenecks during the process of during the clearance process. Based on that data, customs can take remedial action with the support of other agencies to remediate those barriers. It causes demurrages and it enhances port charges. Likewise, actually, the measuring of overall performance of customs and other stakeholder business, this is the key objective of the time release study. The other key objective is to identify bottlenecks in the international supply chains and the constraints affecting the release of goods. Based on that results, we will be able to demonstrate, show the baseline trade facilitation performances of any country. And there is an opportunity to take remedial actions before the implementation of new modernization or digitization processes, as well as after carrying out the survey, it is possible to take further improvements in the processes as well. Again, this is the image of the time release study and interventions that I have already been introduced. Pre-arrival lodgement declaration. In that process, terminals, Sri Lanka Ports Authority, they are the shipping agents, customs house agents are involved. This is the actually the time in between arrival of the goods and its ultimate release. This time will be surveyed, studied at this process during the course of time release study. This is the TRA cycle. As I told you, it's a very key and diagnosis system, technical system. When comparing with the other international border performance systems, this is very technical system, planning, collection of data, test validation. There are a lot. After that, for further improvements, monitoring and evaluation processes is also there. It's a continuous cycle. WTO World Customs Organization recommends to carry out this survey in after every other year once any modernization or innovative process is adopted or implemented. Sri Lanka Customs conducted this survey in 2019 as required under the WTO TFA. During that survey, it was conducted with the participation of all stakeholders at the border, especially the Sri Lanka Ports Authority, other governmental agencies such as SLSI, Quarantine Services, Import and Export Controller, terminals at the port, customs house agents, and examination yard operators as well. You can see the container movement path of the Colombo port. I thought to share some experiences that we gained during the course of this survey. You can see the customs customs headquarters here, and SAGT, CICT, JCT is there. This is the container movement path. After getting the customs declaration process from the customs headquarters, there was another process, as our colleague mentioned, Mr. Puljanedas, as a result of this survey. It was identified as one of the key barriers, which takes a lot of time to reach the terminals. According to the recommendations of the survey, this process was abandoned and amalgamated to the customs online digitization processes. Our rapid scan innovative the scan process armed with the state-of-art technology is there to scan the imported containers. Accordingly, it has been able to release approximately 60% of the volume, 60% of the total volume of the cargo without physically examine. That is a significant and remarkable achievement as far as expeditious release of the containers and international trade transactions are concerned. This is the NCT gate where huge barricades are visible. That is not automated gate, fully automated gate. As a result of conducting this survey, we were able to reduce significant time portion of the throughput time. Previously, it was approximately 15 minutes to passage through one container. So huge time in view of the total clearance time. But as we were able to minimize that time to 4 minutes, and also made proposals to establish smart gate with the collaboration of Sri Lanka Ports Authority. They are also in the process of doing that in future. Also to implement container tracking systems and e-locks where the container lorry drivers, truckers need not to stop their vehicles. They can passage through the NCT gate. They can passage in or out through the NCT gate without any human intervention. Because you know the lack of having a smart customs examination area is another key barricade in order to release the imported cargo that are intended to be examined at the examination points. Our examination yards are situated here out of the port premises in order to enhance the efficiencies of Ports Authority. In order to limit the processes of the Ports Authority for logistic purposes, we had to shift those examination yards out of the port area. And accordingly, this Grand Pass Junction, Ingurukade Junction, it creates huge traffic jam as a result of these container movements. And as a result of our recommendation, Sri Lanka Customs now is in the process of establishing another smart customs area very closer to Colombo port, where the lorry drivers, truckers can reach the examination yard in 15 seconds, having utilized the highway facilities as well. Some results: when we conduct very primitive survey in 2014, the time taken to passage through the gate, to clear the cargo was approximately 28 hours. As a result of adopting such procedures, digitization processes, it was been able to take that time to 16 hours and 29 minutes. That is also a kind of significant achievement as a result of these modernization efforts. Previously, in order to release the cargo that is intended under Green Channel, the cargo that is not posing any a risk, especially the cargo owned by the legitimate traders. It took approximately 2 days to release those cargo. As a result of adoption of those procedures, now we release the cargo intended for grain channel within 24 hours. Some other results as well. This is the time release study survey report that is available in the website. Some ease of doing business world ranks. 2020, our place has dropped to 96 from its previous position 93. I strongly believe, having adopted the key base border practices, digitization processes, modernization processes intended under the implementation of WTO TFA as per the recommendation of the WTO TFA, it will diversify the border perspective of the Sri Lankan border context to amazing context. Having said that, I'd like to conclude my presentation. Again, thanks, Mr. Namal Bandaranayak and Dr. Asela Kulatunga for providing this opportunity for me. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jaratna, as always, for sharing your thoughts with us and the current and future plans for digitalization of Sri Lanka Customs. And thank you also for sharing insights into the all-important time release study. So there are many time release studies that by different countries. So now that Sri Lanka Customs has also done that, there's an avenue to go and compare those studies as well. So I'm sure the listeners, the participants have many questions for me. This is Mr. Sunil Jaratna and all the other presenters who have presented and who are presenting next. So we kindly request all the questions to be put into Q&A session so that it can be used during the panel discussion, which is going to happen at the end of the presentation. So hopefully we'll have a lot of questions coming in that we can use during the panel discussion. So now let's take a moment to listen to a message from our workshop sponsor, Actinet.
Managing container terminals is challenging, and it becomes more and more complex with the wide range of challenges. You want to automate processes, but need to stay flexible. Digitalization is key, but how can this transformation be managed, and how can we accelerate it? Labor and equipment costs must be kept under control. And what about terminal operations? Can they continue despite their CO2 emission? Decision-making under uncertainty is hard. The good news is, there is someone who can assist you with every problem concerning container terminals. Have you heard of Acvinet Port Consulting? Acvinet Port Consulting offers consultancy services to optimize operations for ports and terminals worldwide. In combination with long-term container terminal expertise, Acvinet offers a simulation and emulation software solution, which helps you stay on top of your projects at all times. You stay flexible, yet efficient. Smart software supports human ingenuity. Cost-benefit ratio remains top-notch. And you always have a top-level partner who advises you with every strategic decision you need to make, from process review, consultancy services, and operational optimization, to process simulation and terminal design. There is a ChessCon solution for every challenge. By the way, Acvinet merges knowledge with other industries as well.
Okay, so we are back live. Our next speaker is Mr. Channakadi Alves. So Mr. Channakadi Alves is the current chairman of Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport, Sri Lanka. So in that role, he played an important part in bringing this workshop and the associated conference into fruition. So thank you, Mr. Alves, for that part as well. So Mr. Alves has over 20 years of experience in various areas of supply chain management. Currently, he is serving as the Deputy Director of Abans Logistics Private Limited. So today he's going to share his perspective on digitalization from a haulage company perspective. So over to you, Mr. Alice.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Before I start my presentation, I would like to thank the Central Chapter of CILT Sri Lanka for organizing today's workshop and inviting me to give a presentation on haulage operators' perspective of digitalization. Let me share my screen. Okay. Digitalized haulage can be efficient, contactless, and resilient. I'm sure you must have heard these three words many times over the last 1.5 years. So before we go further, I think we need to lay the groundwork and realize the important role that haulage operators play in the entire ecosystem of our nation's logistics landscape. So let me first start off by saying supply chains are complex systems that operate across multiple verticals, and often these verticals are siloed. Cross-vertical communications are conducted using paper, email, and phone calls, resulting in a great disconnect. I don't know how many of you would agree with me on this, but if you are a practitioner, most, whether it is to your liking or not, would have to admit that most of the processes in the logistics landscape or ecosystem are disconnected. Though there is a considerable amount of efforts and initiatives being taken by various stakeholders to correct that situation. So my intention is not to highlight any shortfalls, but to shine a light on the possibilities of digitalization applicable to the haulage industry. Digitalization of haulage can be challenging yet rewarding. At this juncture, I should say that some of the operators, both corporate and individuals, embraced technology almost a decade ago or more. They fitted their trucks with GPS devices to track the location of trucks. They embraced fleet management systems and transport management systems. All in all, to give their customers a value-added service in a secured manner, and more importantly, on a cost-effective basis, which would benefit all parties concerned. So let me look at what GPS tracking has enabled to the industry. It has given visibility and enhanced security. Location-based visibility provides the stakeholders the necessary intelligence to plan and orchestration of movement. Workflow-based visibility. Stakeholders can collaborate and plan tasks and activities efficiently to increase the productivity. Tamper-proofing and detection. Smart locks and tracking solutions can mitigate and detect possible tampering of cargo and prevent pilferage. Route deviation and anomaly detection. Early and active detection of possible route deviations and anomalies. Today's GPS tracking systems go several steps further by not only giving you the exact location of the vehicle, but some of them can relay back video images, give you the temperature of the cargo, give you the fuel gauge of the cargo, and give you automated updates on various deviations. Geofencing that has been enabled owing to GPS can give warehouses or wharf clerks advance notice of arrival of trucks, either for an export to be examined or for an import to be unloaded. So it has certainly given visibility that everyone could enjoy and use to make their day-to-day activities much easier than before. Smart gates, expeditious and safe. I think it is an anomaly that we associate smart gates with ports. That does not necessarily have to be the case. Smart gates can be fitted in many places that we come across. It could be used at terminals. It can be used at port entrances. It can be used at examination locations like RCT, Rail Line 1 and 2, or CVT. It can be used at yards, and definitely it can be used at some of the godowns or warehouses, warehousing complexes, or distribution centers. So it is not limited. When we say adopt smart gates, we should not put all pressure on the Ports Authority to adopt this, but we should also take the onus and probably see and exploit how we can adapt those facilities in our own operations. What would those entail? Connected systems. Connectivity up to terminals, warehouses, and beyond provides the necessary cargo information for authorization. Identification and access control. Cameras and various sensors provide the authentication of vehicles, people, and containers, etc. Paperless and contactless. Digital documents and workflows drawing from data from sensors and connected systems provide paperless operations, faster and automated processing. Less congestion and reduction in unnecessary hassle. Automation increases the processing speed, provides ability to orchestrate the entry and exit of vehicles to ports and other facilities. There is hardly any human involvement if we can somehow digitize all our individual silo operations and embrace digitalization by way of connecting to one another. I believe the port is talking of a community system which would link all stakeholders, various authorities, service providers, customers alike, and together with financial institutions. Once you have a base, this would provide the framework to facilitate such smart gates. And smart gates will definitely increase efficiency. And also, believe it or not, it will increase security more than human intervention. Because once these devices are in place, once the relevant information are in a depository, those owing to such technologies as blockchain, those cannot be tinkered with. So it is time that we all thought of adapting a community system and also adapting systems on our own which can talk to one another, because that is the most important aspect of digitalization. Digitization is somewhat relatively easy, but digitalization requires effort and concentration. Smart contracts, especially our trade, the haulage trade, is mainly done on verbal contracts. So what would digitization and digitalization provide us with regards to smart contracts? Imagine if you can, through a click of a button, make an offer and somebody accepts it, and somehow you generate a contract, a binding contract, to either receive services or provide services. That is what the future holds for us. Programmed, not interpreted. Contracts made between two or more parties are agreed and processed based on predetermined logic and criteria. Take away or reduces the necessity of interpretation by humans and legal systems. So the contractual obligations are automated. Guaranteed authenticity. All steps and the criteria are recorded and tracked through decentralized multitudes of independent nodes, making the tampering of information virtually impossible. Self-executing and real-time. Smart contracts are executed when the conditions set on each steps coded into the contracts are met. Release of payments, penalties, extra payments agreed by parties are executed without human intervention. Increased operational efficiency, faster processing of receivable payments, reduced number of steps in resolving conflicts, and paperless communication and processing. Who does not want to embrace this? It would either mitigate or totally eliminate misunderstandings, breach of contracts, whilst ensuring that the expected service levels are delivered. More importantly, you can track and trace the level of service, so there is no dispute at the end of completion of one's obligation. Traffic planning and mitigate waiting times. This is the big issue, especially for the haulage industry. As a matter of fact, we cannot attract drivers to drive prime movers if we are involved in coming into port for imports, to take out imports or to take in exports, primarily because of the congestion. The only people, the only mechanism that can address this issue is technology. Unfortunately, the authorities have not mandated GPS tracking of vehicles, but if you do so, you would get a wealth of information which are completely actionable to mitigate traffic and movement to and from the port complex. Imagine a situation where everything is pre-planned. Green channel boxes are sent out on a separate lane which can be tracked and traced by authorities. Imagine telling the driver when to come into port, or when to go into a terminal, or when to position itself to take out an import, or for that matter, imagine maximizing on asset utilization by way of matching exports with energy. That reduces the necessity of vehicles to go in and out of port. It reduces fuel wastage. It reduces human error. So there are a multitude of benefits by way of tracking the traffic patterns that are serving the port. Converging of traffic patterns, geospatial information, and business-specific intelligence for reduced wait times. Predicting the traffic and wait times based on road and port traffic can help haulage partners and ports to synchronize cargo movement schedules. Resource saving and utilization converted to profitability. All these savings, fuel savings, reduce wait time, backhaul planning capabilities, increase resource utilization, and maximize capacity of organizations without increasing resources. So imagine all stakeholders stand to benefit by adopting digitization and going beyond digitization and embracing digitalization, where systems can talk to one another and we work in one single network. Digital documents. Tier level access. Fractions and portions of information can be securely shared between intended stakeholders whilst protecting vital biz secrets that needs protecting. Real-time visibility. Visibility of documents can be shared with intended partners in real time as documents are created and updated. Stakeholders can take action with reducing lags between event and action accordingly. Enhance accuracy. Documents produced through validated inputs, cross-vertical information shared real time are less prone to errors. Human errors, typos, outdated information from systems beyond the organizational borders. These are the benefits of digitalization. You don't need documents anymore. I'll give you a minor example of digitization which failed to cross over to digitalization so far. The port permits, right, for a truck to come in and take an import. Once you pay the wharfage to SLPA, you make an application to the terminal, and the terminal generates the passes. But the passes must be printed and handed over to the relevant truck to go in and take the container out. So this is where digitization has actually happened, because whatever that is being done by the terminal and the port is being done electronically. But then it stops at that. Just for everyone's knowledge and information, in Sri Lanka, most people have smartphones. And haulage operators, the drivers and helpers are no exception. The same pass can be converted into a QR code or a serial number or a data packet that can be shared by an RFID sticker or some instrument fitted onto the truck, whereby once the pass is issued, the relevant truck, which had already been registered with the port, with the relevant, after the necessary checks, can be sent that RFID code. And like we use for ECT on highways, the truck can come in and the detectors can ascertain whether it has been issued the permit or not. So there would be no need to actually issue a physical pass to come in. Hassle-free. Converge services and information. Once the actionable information are available beyond the borders of organizations, are converged into accessible interconnected systems, it can enhance the user productivity and satisfaction. Paperless and connected. Actionable information is at the fingertips of the users without ever moving out of the comforts of their seats. The documents can be updated in real time based on performance of the connected system such as vehicle, wharf functions, and warehouse operations. Remote ready and pandemic resilient. The digitalized haulage system can operate with minimum staff and administration, and orchestration of these work can be done remotely and efficiently without needing to go to an office. High visibility creates trust, security, where innovations in managing business operations can be made. So, ladies and gentlemen, these are a wish list of what not only the haulage industry should embrace, but the entire logistics fraternity should embrace going forward. Because whether we like it or not, digitalization is the future, and we should not be late. Thank you. You all have a good day.
Thank you very much, Mr. Allis, for that insightful presentation and suggesting some innovative approaches for digitalization with whatever the technology that is already available with the users. You suggested using of the smartphones, which is very appropriate considering the situation that we are in. Okay, so our next presenter for the day is Mr. Chandima Hulangamu. Mr. Chandima Hulangamu is a professional in the field of shipping with an experience of over 30 years in the industry. He is also a council member at the Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport. He is also a Global Goodwill Ambassador. Let's hear what Mr. Chandima Hulangamu has to say from shipping line perspective related to the digitalization journey that shipping companies have to go through. So before I let Mr. Hulangamu speak, let me also say Mr. Chandima Hulangamu is the Managing Director of MSC Lanka Private Limited. Over to you, Mr. Hulangamu.
Good afternoon all, and thank you very much, Namal, for that introduction and for inviting me to be a resource person in this workshop. Now, from 2 o'clock in the afternoon, everybody has been hearing of digitalization and using digital tools. My topic today is shipping lines and shipping agents' perspective on adoption of digital tools. Now, everybody knows that shipping has been existing for over 1,000 years, or more than 1,000+ years. And ships have been sailing, people have been moving, cargo have been moving from port to port, country to country for over thousands of years. And until we had the radio communication in early 60s or late 50s, the ships never had a way of communicating each other, even with other ships as well as more than other ships, with the owners as well as the shipping agents. All over the world, in every port, you need an agent to handle a ship. So they never had the two-way communication. So they have been using earlier stages, pre-electricity stage. I would say that they have been using the signal systems like the semaphore signaling, and then using the Morse codes. So that's how the shipping has been, shipping lines have been, the ships have been communicating each other. Now, one can ask a question, why digitalization when the ships have been moving and the same job has been done, moving the cargo from one port to another port and moving passengers from one port to another port? Yes, they have been doing that, but we have to question how efficient were they. Now, the people who have been there about 50 years or 40 years in shipping will know how difficult it was to communicate with the ship. And giving a two-way communication was very difficult. So it was the cables that they used to get the cables and the short messages, then you need to act on those. And it was very difficult to get the cable messages. And somebody has to be alert on receiving the cables. Then later on, when the radio technology was introduced, and in 1960s, early 60s, two companies, that Inmarsat and Cosmos, SARSAT. So these two companies came with the satellite communications when the ships used the Inmarsat satellite communications, basically. So these were very expensive, but that had the two-way communication. So which was the breakthrough, and then went on to have the radio communication expanded. So with the can you move on with the Nama? Okay. So then with the introduction of the two-way technology, with the radio technology, and then came to the late 80s or early 90s. Sorry, I would say that early 90s or mid of 90s, that the internet and email services were introduced. So that was the game changer for entire communication of shipping. So you don't have to wait for days or years, days or a few hours to get the matter communicated to your owners or the agents. Once the email communication and the internet services were available, it was just within a few minutes that you will receive the emails. So just before the emails, the telexes were there. So telexes again was a cumbersome exercise where there should be a telex operator in an office who should be on 24-hour duty. And when you get the telexes, you have to circulate to the respective people. Now, when you transfer it to emails, where you will be able to read the emails on your desktop or your palm top or your smartphone, and you will get the message immediately. So, and you can respond back. And with the increase of the internet services on board vessels, now it is very easy for the agents to communicate with the shipping lines. So why I said about the history of it is we can see how efficient with the evolving of the communication. Now, what are the digital tools being used, and how, for what areas the digital tools have been used? Mainly for communication, internet, email, and mobile phones. And also you see the navigating, how the earlier era, how the sailors, the masters were navigating the ships. And now you have the gyro compasses, radars, autopilot functions, electronic charts. Now you can see how the, I think most of you will have seen the marine charts. So where you need to keep it on the masters on the bridge, and then do the manual calculations, and then navigate the ship accordingly. But now everything is digitalized. You have the charts digitally available on the ship, on the bridge. So it is very easy, and you can do the calculations automatically on the system. So you don't have to do the manual calculations also. And the automatic identification system, AIS, where you can track the ship where it is, and the owners can track the ship wherever the ship is in the when it's on water. And the voyage data record, the VDRs, the black box of the ships. So all these are possible with the introduction of the improvements of the digital tools, introduction of the new digital tools, and also the terminal management. I think Upul explained it very well on how the yard planning was practiced with the digital tools. I myself can remember how we used to locate the containers when the containerization was introduced to Sri Lanka in I think 1989 or 88 or 89, and then early 90s we had only the Queen Elizabeth key. Now it is SAGT, fully updated and automated terminal, I would say. They are the first to do that. And before that, Queen Elizabeth key, when QCT, Queen Elizabeth Container Terminal, when the first containers were handled, we had the card system, the pink cards and the yellow cards. We used to have for discharging one color, loading one color, and locating a container is written on the card. So if the container cannot be located, then you need to go and find the container. So it's a cumbersome effort. Now you don't need to do any of those. So it's all systematically controlled and all data is stored on the computers. So this is what we have to see is how efficiency has improved by using the digital tools in shipping industry, by the ship owners, shipping lines, as well as the shipping agents. And also for ship supply services. You see ship supply services you used to, for that's a where if you have spare parts, or even if you have to send a document, physical document to a ship, then you need to hire a boat and go alongside the ship at anchorage or maybe drifting. You have to go alongside and deliver on board. So taking all the risk. But now with the introduction of the drones, you can deliver smaller packages and parcels, documents using the technology of drone technology. Now see how it has evolved over the years, and the efficiency has improved, and lot more to come. Namal, can you move to the next slide? I've just listed a few of the digital tools and technologies that being used in shipping. AI technology, of course, it's used not only in shipping. Everybody uses this now. The big data analysis and the IoT, the Internet of Things. So that is the latest being used now for all the on the vessels also, where the for example now if the passenger vessels and individual cabins, everything can be remotely controlled. So on even your lights, fans, everything can be remotely controlled by using these. And digital route management chips, then smart maneuvering control, autonomous control. Now you can see the autonomous vessels are coming up, and a few ships are already on water, and smaller ships. So very soon, within next 10 years, the autonomous ships will be the area in shipping, manless automated ships, and also smart propulsion systems, integrated control systems, smart defense technology, then the blockchain technology. Now, this blockchain technology, the latest being introduced, and it is used for sending the BLs, EBS, electronic bill of lading, is now transferred from using the blockchain technology. Recently, it was introduced in Sri Lanka by a line, and it will continue with other lines also. So this is where you don't have to physically have a bill of lading issued, and where the customer, the exporter, the shipping agent, shipping line, then the bank involved, and the corresponding bank involved at the destination, and the consignee. All links of this chain has to be in the same platform of blockchain technology. And once all in that, so we can start using it. So you can't have 100% immediately using blockchain technology for EBS, but wherever all these links are completed, we can use this. And also the robotics and drones, 3D printing. These are the other areas that with the modern technology being used to improve the efficiencies of shipping lines, operating ships, as well as the agencies. Now, you see, this is long years ago. I can remember when we used to report the cargo manifest to the terminals and the customs. Mr. Sunil Jaratna explained how the digitalization has taken place in customs. Yes, I do agree. When I started my shipping, of course, 30 years ago or more, so it was where we used to carry the manifest by hand. About, if I'm not mistaken, it's about 14 copies we used to carry. And if you have more volumes, your size of the manifest will be about 100 pages or more. And 14 copies of that has to be circulated, distributed in different locations, different places in customs, as well as the terminals. And now these have been limited to 1 or 2 copies, essential copies for preventive, and 1 copy to another location. So that is the huge change. It's just a waste of paper, waste of time carrying and distributing it. Now all digitalized, so now it is using the Asikuda system. We can transmit the manifest electronically. Even when for the discharging of the containers and loading of the containers, we used to print out, type, print the discharging list and the load list, and manually hand over to the terminals. And manually the cards were written for discharging and loading. So entire process has changed over the last 3 decades. And now it's just an EDI file, goes to the terminal update on the system, upload to the system, and you know what are the containers to be discharged, and what are the locations, and what are the containers to be loaded. The color plans, so no manual color plans, all now digitalized. So this is the change, and this is the why it has been changed, is for the benefit of the industry and to be more efficient. And we all agree that it is a very efficient service, and more to be done. As Chanaka mentioned about smart gates, it's not only the Ports Authority. So it's an easy thing to be done. It is not very difficult. But somebody has to take the button and say, yes, let's do it now. So these are the things that to be done. And there are so many things in customs. Mr. Sunil Jaratna mentioned that how difficult it was to convert the casting to digitalize digital form. Now it is a digitalized form where the casting can be uploaded and the data can be transferred. So earlier it was a very difficult task of getting the casting approved and going table to table. So but still there are some processes in the customs has to be completed to be 100% digitized. So we are on the right path, but in a very slow pace, I would say. Very slow pace. We could have done what we have done now about 10 years ago or 5 years at least ago. But still we have the chance, opportunity to do whatever we can easily. We need this digitization and digitalization of all the government agencies to be done 100%. It has to be a paperless society. So then our efficiencies will improve much more. And you don't have to have, nobody should have any fear of losing jobs. This fear factor was there in 1990s when the computer was introduced. People were saying, okay, we will lose jobs. Yes, of course, that particular job will not be there, but there will be lots of new jobs will be created. So there will be lots and lots of new jobs will be created. So there shouldn't be any fear of losing any jobs. That was one of the barriers for going 100% digitalization. So that's from my side. I'm not going to take much more time, and because most of the areas were covered by our two fantastic keynote speakers. They touched on the shipping lines, terminals, ports, the full work. So, and all the other speakers also. So I'm not going to take much time on this. So that's it from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wollongong. So you started very insightfully from the beginning of shipping, the evolution, what it has happened and how the things evolved over time until the present day. So that was very insightful. I think you can use a lot of that material during our discussion further. Thank you so much for being with us. So let me introduce our last speaker of the day, Dr. Prasanth Jayamanne. Dr. Jayamanne is the Vice Chairman of Sri Lanka Ports Authority, the regulator of the Colombo Port. Dr. Jayamanne is responsible for the information strategy of Sri Lanka Ports Authority. He holds a doctorate in business administration. He is also chairman of DPJ Holdings. He is also known as the most awarded young entrepreneur in Sri Lanka. So he is not only the chairman of the Ports Authority, but he is very into other ventures as well. So let's hear from Dr. Jayamanne. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Namal, and hope you all could hear me. The topic narrows me down to digitalization port from the regulator's perspective. Now, I would like to start, since the time has already gone way beyond the time period which was allocated, to cut it down and to see the historic view of port regulator was to do the policing or controlling or enforcing type of a mechanism, and that was the earlier view of the regulator, historic view of the regulator. But new view of the regulator how we see as the Port Authority, as well as the Ministry of Ports and Shipping, the new we should be, and it is being transformed up to a certain level to enable the regulators' role to become the agent for more transparency, making the business to enable to do the trade, as well as removing red tapes and connecting stakeholders. Now, these are the new view of the port, new view which we are planning to and which we are implementing as the port regulator. We are moving away from that enforcing, policing kind of a mechanism towards a more inclusive approach toward working with the industry as a stakeholder. Now, similarly, as the regulator, we wanted to bring in efficiency and productivity by various means of new implementation. Now, we know in the areas such as navigation, berthing, interterminal transfers, scheduling, MCC and LCL operations, there are issues as of now. There are a lot of digitalization to be done in these areas. But as of now, we could say the initiative that we have taken is fruitful, and at least we have eliminated, nearly 2 weeks back, I had a discussion with CASA, and we have basically eliminated all the manual processes except things related to port health and port health ministry related regulation. All the other things has gone up to the level of certain type of digitalization. Now, that is how the things are evolving, or things we are making evolve as the port regulator. Now, the current initiatives what we have taken as SLPA initially, we have implemented the info system, which is the latest terminal operating system in the world, and which is quite efficient, and which gives a lot of avenues for the shipping lines and other stakeholders to directly log in and work and those type of things. And then we have initiated first time in Sri Lanka to build an automated terminal. ECT, East Container Terminal, will be a semi-automated terminal, and we believe that our partners, the WCT new company, CWIT, they also will come up with at least a semi-automated or automated terminal. Now, this is a kind of a new frontier that we are getting in. Now, when a port is having a semi-automated or automated terminal, it improves the efficiency, and it improves so many other aspects as well. Then the ITT, interterminal trucking process digitalization, has started, and we are rapidly working on that as well. It's a matter of finalizing the final vendors and working with them. MCC and LCC process automation. We hear a lot of time about the issue related to this thing, and we have already initiated the ground level civil work changes which required for the process automation. Without doing proper parking systems, proper goods discharging system, you can't just implement digitalization. Now the civil work has started in all the old warehouses such as B, Q, and all these things people knows about this in the shipping industry. Now civil work is going on. Once that is completed, we'll be able to move towards the digitalization part of the LCL and MCC movement as well. Now, as again, moving out from the SLPA initiatives, as a regulator's point of view, we are in the process currently with the port committee system implementation. At the initial stage, we are working with ADB, and ADB has already got Port of Rotterdam and PwC as the consultants to work with all the stakeholders in Sri Lanka to create the specs, RFPs, and all the things related to port community system. And personally, we are working with Port of Hamburg, Port of Rotterdam, and all these places to find out how they did it and how efficiently they moved the change management processes and how the digitalization has happened. And this is a reality. This has been talking for last several years, but it has not implemented. But I'm sure within coming 9 months to 1.5 years horizon, we'll be in a good position that port community system will start to become a reality. The stakeholder meetings are, as of now, happening with the leadership of ADB and the appointed consultants. And from the other side, we see now the ports such as Port of Hamburg and Port of Rotterdam and all share their information between different countries, different ports, to improve the efficiency. In the long run, once we implement the port community system, we'll be able to do the same thing with regional ports as well. Now, this is how what we see from the regulator's point of perspective about the digitalization. SLS Sri Lanka has come a long way, but long way to go. But we see that the things are moving in the right direction, and we are happy about the phase that we are implementing things. But there is an obligation by the academics and by the professionals as well as the business sector to fearlessly advocate the importance of private-public partnerships, which will enable this moving forward mechanism faster. Because if the regulator only start to implement all these solutions by utilizing their funds, their mechanisms and all, things could take very long time to get to happen in the ground. And because of that, professionals, academics should come out and voice their requirement of work in the public sector or the government and private sector for these type of implementations, which we have not seen from the industry. People talk about digitalization, they want port to do digitalization, they ask us to implement things, but when a privatization or when a public-private partnership is coming in, none of the chambers, none of them are coming in, at least giving a press release by telling the direction that we are going is right and support. Due to this reason, some of the unions which are run by some minor workers or minor staff could come and say that the port assets or certain things are selling, or these type of partnerships which will ultimately block or sell the national assets. But what we have seen from the SAGT, from CICT and from WCT, whenever the private sector comes into the picture, digitalization initiatives, transparency initiatives, productivity initiatives goes up. We want the industry also to come and help us change in the people's mind to embark on this direction. That's from me about this thing, and thank you for organizers for listening to the regulators' perspective, because most of the time regulators are not participating in this type of events, and thank you very much about it. Over to you again.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jayamanna. Dr. Jayamanna is joining us while he's traveling. So he's took time out from his travels to be with us. So thank you very much for that. At this point, let me take a moment to acknowledge the presence of our other resource persons who are here for the discussion, but they will take part in the discussion, but they will not be presenting as such. So we have Mr. Ramesh David, the Chief Executive Officer of South Asia Gateway Terminals Private Limited. We have Mr. Uparidi Soisa, Additional Managing Director, Retired, Sri Lanka Ports Authority. We have Mr. Ranaraja, Imran Ranaraja, Director of Customs and Head of National Trade Facilitation Committee, Secretariat of Sri Lanka Customs. We also have Mr. Lal Veerakon, Superintendent of Customs, Member of National Trade Facilitation Committee Secretariat, and member of RC Hub and Trade Lens Maritime Digitalization Project. Thank you all for being with us. So we'll now take 1 minute to listen to a message from our sponsor. And after that, Dr. Kiridena will take over the session for the discussion.
Managing container terminals is challenging, and it becomes more and more complex with the wide range of challenges. You want to automize processes, but need to stay flexible. Digitalization is key, but how can this transformation be managed, and how can we accelerate it? Labor and equipment costs must be kept under control. And what about terminal operations? Can they continue despite their CO2 emission? Decision-making under uncertainty is hard. The good news is, there is someone who can assist you with every problem concerning container terminals. Have you heard of Akvinet Port Consulting? Akvinet Port Consulting offers consultancy services to optimize operations for ports and terminals worldwide. In combination with long-term container terminal expertise, Akvinet offers a simulation and emulation software solution, which helps you stay on top of your projects at all times. You stay flexible, yet efficient. Smart software supports human ingenuity. Cost-benefit ratio remains top-notch. And you always have a top-level partner who advises you with every strategic decision you need to make, from process review, consultancy services, and operational optimization, to process simulation and terminal design. There is a ChessCon solution for every challenge. By the way, Akvinet merges knowledge with other industries as well.
Hello again, and thank you once more to all the presenters and everyone else for being patient with us for the whole time. And before we move on to the Q&A session, I would just like to take a minute or so to run a quick poll so that we can get a reasonable idea as to where we sit at the moment in terms of our agreement on where we are in Sri Lanka in relation to digitalization. So if everyone could take a moment to actually respond to this question, that would be appreciated. While you are responding to the poll, I will just take the opportunity to share a couple of points. Looking back at the presentation, I can see that there is strong consensus among all the stakeholders, or for that matter, all the presenters that the benefits of digitalization and the potential of digitalization is quite unanimously agreed upon, I believe. And I saw some degree of diversity in terms of the level of automation that we've been able to achieve, as well as the perspectives from the different stakeholders as to how we approach digitalization. So I think there is a good opportunity for us to actually carry on this conversation during the Q&A session to see if there is any consensus that we can develop in terms of how we approach the whole journey of digitalization moving forward. So normally, do you think that we have had enough time to respond to the poll? And yes, so you share the, so you could see that looking at, I hope everyone can see the results of the poll showing up on the screen. Assuming that is the case, I can see that we are sort of the halfway mark on our scale as to how far we have gone in terms of digitalization, which is arguably a reasonable position to be in for a country like Sri Lanka, but that also highlights us that there's a lot of potential for us to actually leverage the technologies for for enhancing the performance of port operations. So with that little bit of feedback there, let's move on to the Q&A session. Just a couple of housekeeping points. We have been keeping our microphones muted for the whole time. I think we will continue to do so. And I am seeing a number of quite interesting questions coming through the Q&A space. So what I would probably do is I would go through as many questions as possible. And I would read the questions back to the panel. And if the panel members, any of the panel members would like to take up that question individually, I would suggest they raise the hand, and then we can ask them to unmute the mic and respond to the question. And also, if I find some questions of the similar type, I might amalgamate that. I might combine those questions again for the sake of keeping to time and making sure that all the questions are responded to. So let's, without taking any more time, let's just move on to the questions. So you would again recall that we have been talking about all the benefits of technology introduction, but the very first question that we have received is looking at the workforce involved. And I think this question was at least partially addressed by one of the presenters. I think it was Chandima who addressed this question to some extent, right? So I will read this question and let someone from the panel to pick it up. How will this digitalization can affect the workers? Will digitalization itself create more unique job opportunities? The question comes from Janapri Jayawardena. If you would like me to repeat the question, I'm more than happy to do so, but otherwise you could just take up the question. Probably, I would suggest that someone representing the Ports Authority or the landlord's role could start with the response.
I even don't think that we need a response to this thing for this type of panel discussion. We all know that this is a kind of a basic assumption that when the computers comes into Sri Lanka,
I would read the question again.
Early 90s.
How will this digitalization can affect the workers? Will digitalization itself create more unique job opportunities?
Yeah, obviously, I mean, any type of technological evolutions or evolvements will create more job opportunities in a different
Would someone like to unmute the microphone and start speaking, if you don't mind?
Dr. Kiridena, I think Dr. Prasant Jayaman is
you are muted, I think. Namal, are you?
No, I think you can't hear maybe.
Okay, yeah, no worries.
Dr. Jayaman was answering. Sorry, Dr. Jayaman, if you could start again. I think Dr. Kiridena could not hear.
All right, I think it's, all right. Sorry about that,
Okay, it's basically what I was telling is this was the same question which came in early 90s when the computers was introduced to Sri Lanka, whether there will be a threat to the workers, job security and all those things. But obviously, we know digitalization will bring in more and more job opportunities in different sectors and different areas. And a person who's jumping up on a crane and working from the top of the crane could work inside the air-conditioned room and do the same job. That is the automation, digitalization, which brings in. And that mentality is what required. Actually, unfortunately, sometimes these type of things are coming from the professionals as well. One example is when we were planning to automate the ECT is container terminal. Some of the people who opposed that thing, or who told that at least a certain type of automation is not right, or we don't have to go into that thing, is some of the engineers. Now this is the scenario. The complete the change of mindset is required. And apart from that thing, I don't see any job-related issues or anything will come in.
Thank you very much for that response, and I think that's a brilliant response to our first question. And there was a related question coming from an anonymous attendee. How difficult would it be to retrain users to use digital tools? This is not necessarily in relation to the employees of port facilities. I think this is more to do with the users of those technology, whether it is internally within the port premises, or even the customers who would be using those systems. Right? So how difficult would it be to retrain users to use digital tools? Would anyone like to take that up?
Yeah, can I answer that? This is
Yes,
Shanaki
please.
here.
Thank you.
My answer would also relate to your first question, right? See, you have to look at technology, digitization and digitalization as an equalizer. It does not take away, it does take away certain jobs, but it creates more. I mean, look at the Uberization of the transport industry. It opened up a lot of other, whole new avenue for bike riders and car drivers to make a living. Likewise, I don't think we should create this atmosphere of fear that digitalization will take away jobs. And in terms of training, especially the younger generation, right? They are more apt and they embrace technology more so than the older generation. And I don't think retraining is actually required, because if you look at internet penetration and smartphone usage in Sri Lanka, I mean, we are going into double digits, right? So I mean, in terms of adapting technology, it is very easily done. I mean, all you have to do is as proof to go to TikTok and YouTube to see that most of these people who have their own TV channels and various are from the suburb. It's not from the Western province, it's from the outskirts. So obviously it will be embraced, and I don't think we need to fear.
Okay, thank you very much for that response as well. And in summary, so I would say that some jobs would be displaced by others, which are more technology oriented. That would involve some level of retraining, but that is part of the transformation process taking overall. So we have a lot of evidence coming from other areas or other parts of the world of such transformation taking place successfully. So I would conclude with that comment there, and then move on to the next question. Again, when we talk about technology adoption, technology implementation, the initial cost of introducing technology might be substantial in some cases, if not many cases. So the question is, any estimations on potential cost savings on the long term resulted by this digitalization effort? Probably I would direct this question to first Professor Holger, and he might want to share his experience at a broad level. What are the typical cost savings that you could expect from the introduction of certain digitalization initiatives? I think this is going to be a fairly tough question to answer in a universal manner, but while appreciating that, I will give Professor Holger a chance to respond.
Yes, okay. What we heard during the presentations, thanks all presenters for that. We saw, or we heard about some digitization projects, and we saved, I think it was for the customs, 28 hours of working was it before, and now it's 16.5 hours until the container is available. It's hard to measure this in euros or in dollars or Sri Lanka rupias. So it's, but it shows that it works. And I mentioned that vessels are becoming bigger and bigger. There are less vessels but with more throughput. And this has to be handled by the ports. Perhaps an example for the, I don't know how long it took, but the Altenwerder terminal that I showed in the beginning, it was built in 2002, or started in 2002 operation. And people were really talking about the amount of money that was used for that. So there is a number of some 25 million euros that had been that HHLA paid for the IT system. And people were saying, oh, we don't think that this will really work out. This will take too long. But let's say it's nearly 20 years now. And let's say since 10 years, about 10 years, it's really the cow cash within the HHLA group. Yes, because it's saving a lot of money. So I think it's not only the money, it's more what we heard also from Mr. De Alves and others. It's the cooperation which will be better. It's really saving time. It's saving, yes, or it's helping us to work together in a much easier and faster way. And this will, of course, also really will go to money, but it's hard to give a number for that.
That's right. Yeah. Thank you very much for that response, Professor Hauger. And any other members of the panel who would like to chip in? Yes, please. Mr. Sunil Jaratna has put his hand up. Could you please unmute yourself and speak?
Sorry, it was muted. Yeah, absolutely. There will be a extended cost savings as a result of introduction of digitization projects efforts. I would say in my presentation, I mentioned that usage of NII technology and risk management efforts, which are all are digitized projects. So as a result of non-examination of cargo, physical examination of the cargo, the traders are able to get their cargo cleared without physical intervention of the customs and other ports authority involvements or terminal operator involvements. Assume that he has to pay examination yard charges 10,000 to 15,000 or 25,000 according to the local context. That whole amount will be saved as a result of non having enough physical examination and lorry charges and other HR charges. I would say it's vary, and average savings would be more than 50% as a result of digitization of the clearance process.
Yep. Great, thanks very much. So you could see that the consensus view is that yes, the investments would be substantial, but the savings are substantial as well, at least in the longer run, right? And also, it is not just the money that we're talking about saving, as the presenters mentioned, as the panel members mentioned, that time as well as the user experience or the customer's experience. We are enhancing the customer's experience by introducing these technologies, and the inconvenience that could be eliminated through the digitalization process could be substantial as well. So I think probably the message is to think holistically when we talk about investment costs or initial costs. With that comment again, let me move on to the next question. And this is probably going to Mr. Sunil Jaratna as well. There are a few questions about some of the initiatives that we've been hearing about, introduced by, I think, largely by customs. So one question is, we have been hearing about the pre-arrival processing of debts. Would it be implemented soon? Or I will modify the question a little bit and say, has it been already implemented, or has it been introduced already?
Yeah, actually that is also in the pipeline and to be implemented. And the matter is pending finalization as a result of some legal constraints. Actually, one of the key requirement is the political will. There should be a strong political will in order to implement any mega project. So the political will is required to address those legal constraints. If the government looks into this matter broadly, they will, if they take decisions regarding the legal constraints, the matter will be solved in, I would say, in an year. Like it's in the schedule as per the requirement under the WTO TFA implementation. It is mandatory requirement. So once this legal issue is resolved, it will be implemented in another year.
All right, thanks very much again for that response. So it's been clarified for Kumushini Tenako. And I'll move on to the next question then. This is probably a question that should go to someone from the Ports Authority probably. It's about smart gates. Is there a plan to introduce smart gates at the port? I suppose it's at the Colombo port. Again, I have heard that we've already had installed some smart gates there. So can someone respond to that as well, please? Can't see all the panelists.
Can you hear me?
So the question is there a plan to introduce smart gates at the port?
Yes, there are so many initiatives to make the gates smarter, as well as I mentioned earlier, when we are implementing the things.
I would also remind that I think as
Dr. Kiridena, yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. I think Dr. Kiridena is having some problem hearing. Maybe it's Dr. Kiridena, we can't hear you. Maybe your mic is muted.
Okay, for the benefit of others, I'll continue in that case. There are initiatives because the ECD terminal will contain all the smart gate options, and simultaneously in the other terminals, from the other terminals and the exit gates, there are initiatives which has already been taken for the certain type of port authority related check-in to be stopped, and we are planning to use some of the OCR readers and things like that for the automation purposes, and some of them have already been initiated, and people don't have to physically submit a receipt at the gates, and they could just move through the gates, and these are being implemented and some are in the pipeline as well.
All right, thanks very much for that. Sorry, who was it? I actually just lost completely the connection, like the voice before.
That was Dr. Prasanta Jayaman from
Sri Lanka Ports Authority. Thank you, Prasanta. Yeah. And the next question is, I think I'm going to keep some questions towards the end, but I'll try to prioritize some of those questions. Yeah, there are a couple of quite generic questions as well. I'm trying to actually find the best question to go next. So this is probably a question that should go to, I think it was Chanakadiya Alvis. what is the additional cost on average due to congestion incurred by haulage operations?
Okay, I don't have the latest statistics, but we did our trucks are fitted with GPS tracking and we can monitor. It was from the entry to exit. When you go in to pick up a container, approximately 36% of our fuel is wasted during that run. So that is a significant amount of fuel consumption. And also in terms of timing, see, most of the containers of import containers, they are being delivered to go downs within the Western province. So that is about a radius of maybe maximum of 35 to 45 kilometers. And you know, if in terms of timing, majority of the time, that is about more than 50% of the time is wasted from the entry point to going all the way to a terminal, picking up the container and going to any of the examination points and then continuing onwards. So in terms of, you know, wastage, as far as trucking is concerned, owing to congestion, I would say that is a significant wastage that we can, because I mean, just to give you an idea of fuel consumption, most of these trucks do maximum of 2.5 to 3.5 kilometers per liter, right? So you can compare the price of a liter of diesel fuel and then calculate exactly the loss to the economy in terms of wastage.
Great. Thanks very much for that response. I think it's an anonymous attendee who put that questions through. Just let me conclude that. And so the savings, the additional costs could be substantial, and the savings are proportionate to that. Savings are really in terms of the loss of, like reducing the fuel cost, as well as reducing the time taken to complete the trip. And also I would expect there would be substantial reduction in environmental, the cost to the environment in terms of emissions and things like that. So let me move to the next question. Then there are a few other questions which are somewhat related to each other. So I'll try to sort of take them through one by one to start with. What would be the immediate step that you would see possible in Sri Lanka moving towards digitalization? Who would like to respond to that question? Yes, Upul Janadasa, please.
Yes, Doctor. I think we have to understand digitalization is not a phenomenon, it's a phenomenon, but it is a commercial decision. Now, if it is a port, you can't just think of digitalizing the whole port at once. So you have to understand what your priorities are. And then, like if it is a gate, if it is the key site or if it is yard or whatever, that you have to identify the process, and then the process should be digitalized. So that is a strategy. So it depends on a business strategy, and you decide what your priorities are, and then you act on it. So then, the whatever that is which will generate more efficiency, more returns, definitely that will be the first priority to go. So that's how the digitalization is affected or executed, right?
Okay. Did someone else want to add something to that as well? I saw a couple of hands being raised, but probably they were the ones sitting from the previous questions, I think. All right, then there's a related question. Yes, so just to reiterate the same point, and then the the prioritization or the immediate step would depend on what the business priorities are. And then I would again reinforce one of the points mentioned by Mr. Jinadasa, that they might start at the process level. They will identify certain processes that need to be, for example, improved to result in a certain level of performance improvement in the whole system. And then those immediate steps could be picked up at the process level as well. And another related question was, in terms of sharing data, I'm just trying to locate that question. I see. If we implement smart ports in Sri Lanka, how can ports and supply chain stakeholders exchange data? Yes, please go ahead with your response, Mr. Upul Jinadasa.
Yes, now the data exchange are happening between the entities or the stakeholders. So those stakeholders have to get together and then discuss, okay, this is how we are going to work together. So that is why the collaboration is very important. The standardization is very important. And then there are lots of the new technologies that are available for us to use. So that, the digitalization involves the trade, and we have to collaborate with each other, and we have to trust each other, and then to establish interfaces to suit everyone. Yeah. So that is a process. That process also had to be worked out, and then like when the facilities are implemented, already the interfaces are also built.
Great, thanks very much for that. And I might actually have a follow-up question on the same point. Can some of the panelists share, at one instance, one initiative that required collaboration between multiple stakeholders? Just a few examples, if you could share with us. I would probably ask someone who hadn't really participated in the discussion up to this point. I can't see all the panel members' names in my screen somehow, so probably probably Upali de Souza. Mr. Soisa, can you hear us? Yeah.
Yes, good evening. Good evening. Thanks a lot for giving me this opportunity. Yeah. In fact, I have been listening for the very comprehensive presentations of our colleagues in the industry. In my case, of course, I have been the direct operations, direct logistics, and additional direct. I was involved in this process for almost 2 decades. So, but my 2 points were already addressed there. One is the reluctance in exchanging information. The other one is the lack of political leadership. Our friend Sunil Jaratna pointed out that very well. So I think that if we can have those 2 areas solved, we have a very good chance to expedite our digitalization in Sri Lanka. So now, in case of exchanging information, my friend Upul may agree with me, because we have to safeguard the interest of our customers, especially the shipping lines. So there is a reluctance in sharing information due to that. But if we can, get together with all the stakeholders and see how we are going to exchange the information, safeguarding their interests, that is the most important thing. And the other thing is, we must have the political leadership, political will to go ahead with this, because now in national single window, we have been struggling for the last 2 decades. Once again, now we are very happy to see that Port Authority, our Dr. Prashant Jaman, Vice Chairman, is very keen in implementing the national single window. We got the assistance of Asian Development Bank to appoint the consultants. Then, of course, we are in the process of implementing national single window. Once again, there should be an integrated system to integrate, both national single window and port committee system. Then only we can get the results out of all these two projects. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mr. Soisa. And would anyone else, any other panelist like to add anything to that or share their experience?
Dr. Kiridena, both Mr. Upul Jinadas and Ms. Jagat Patirana have raised their hands. I think we should give them a chance to.
Okay, let's give Mr. Jagat Patirana a chance again, please.
Yeah, thank you, Doctor. I think I am very, it was music to my ears when I heard the Vice Chairman of Ports Authority mentioning about the port community network arrangement or the facilitation which is being presently studied. So that's a very welcome gesture. And the single window, which my friend Upali mentioned, is something that we are really wanting, to happen. And during my presentation also, I made a submission about the need to have a port community system, which is more to do with a e-commerce platform, where everyone can interact in that platform and share information, which is the key to this success story. So I think I would only wanted to add on to the positives and be happy about the fact that there is something happening now. Thank you.
Thanks very much. There was one other question, I think, okay, so this is again sort of following on from another question that we already addressed before. So this comes from Smithya Somaskanta. When talking about smart ports, some technologies don't come cheap. As a developing country, is there a way to decide which tools will bring the most value to a targeted port? Probably we will start with Professor Hoga on this one. I'll read the question again.
Yes, now I got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You
want? Yeah. You could read that, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I have it on my screen as well. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very a good question because it really depends on each single terminal. Yes, so we heard that for the East Container Terminal, there are some parts are already prepared or they want to do things there. Of course, in the new port, it's easier to implement things. But what I like in digitalization is that it can really be done with small steps. If you look into your terminal, yeah, if you look at the terminal, you can implement an automated gate. You can implement PDS systems that show you where your equipment is, so that the TOS system on the other side, the control system, can use this information to optimize things better. And there are other things. I don't know how the traffic situation in Sri Lanka is at the ports, but I saw a wonderful project in Manila. So when I first visited the terminal in Manila, I was standing on the roof of the office building and I saw a parking slot for trucks. It was really running over. And when I came with the taxi in, we had to pass a lot of trucks really queuing up. It was a mess. And some 3-4 years I've been there again, and they implemented a truck appointment system. So the trucks are not allowed to come at any time. They have to book a slot, but then they are guaranteed that they are processed within 30 minutes or 1 hour, whatever. And when I came back and I was on this roof, I looked down and said, oh, what's this for a free place here? It really, this is something that really works best. And this is perhaps also an answer to a question that you raised before, where people have to work together so that it fits. For the terminal operator, it's very good to know which truck will come at which time, because he knows this container has to be on the top of the others. if he knows that the truck will come within the next 15 minutes or the next slot. For the truck driver, it's hard. He is not allowed to come whenever he wants, but he got the security that if he is coming, he will be served within a short time. And this is something, this works really very good, but we see it also in Bremerhaven. Who has to organize this? So the terminal in Bremerhaven says, no, the truckers have to do something. The truckers say, oh, the terminal has to do it. And I think in your situation, having the port authority also as not only as a landlord, but also looking into the operation, this would be something this may be managed by the port authority. They have to prepare these things like the national window and what we heard before. So these are the interactions between the stakeholders have to be done by, or would be best to have an independent organization to do this.
All right, thank you. And I'm just going to put a follow-up question to the whole panel. Have you been using, or are you aware of any cost-benefit analysis kind of tools that are being used in the industry for the purpose of prioritizing digitalization efforts? So what is the sort of the status quo in terms of cost-benefit analysis when we are implementing digitalization initiatives? Any experiences that you could share with us, any of the panel members? Again, I can't see all the hands, all the panel members here. I'll try to navigate through that. Probably I'll modify that the question a little bit, and I would put a slightly different question. So we talk about prioritizing digitalization initiatives. So, and Professor Hogger mentioned that we could start with small things or small steps, but let's put it in a dichotomous way, right? The top-down Big Bang approach versus the bottom-up evolutionary approach. Is one of those better than the other, or would that depends on the situation or the circumstances? Anyone who would like to respond to that?
Okay, again, but
yes, please.
Similar to what I said before. So yeah. A top-down approach, of course, if you have a greenfield terminal, you will have two in your in your port, the west and the east container terminal, and there you will see a lot of things already planned from the beginning. The other things are really, yes, step by step. You can, if it's only your process, you can do it step by step. And if you have really, yes, if you have to interconnect with others, the main thing is, yes, not to wait for the others or taking over the responsibility for this. Yes, and say, okay, like this truck appointment system, or may it be papers that have to be exchanged also for the truck visits, but also for customs and so on. Somebody has to take over the role.
Sure. Yeah. All right. Thanks very much for that. And then I'll move on to the last question possibly for this round. Is there an index to measure the level of digitalization? How do we know where we are? Or how do we benchmark ourselves? So that question comes from Prasanna Ilankong. I'll read it again for the benefit of everyone. Is there an index to measure the level of digitalization? How do we know where we are? Or how do we benchmark ourselves? Yes, yeah. Who would like to respond to that, please?
Yeah, Dr. I'm Sunil Jaratna. I have raised my hand. I think it's not visible to you.
Yes, sorry about all that. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I would like to answer that question in terms of the World Customs Organization's time-release study. As I stressed to you during my presentation, there are a lot of performance measurement indexes internationally, but World Customs Organization recommends to conduct time-release study surveys, which is a technical survey. If you have implemented any digital modernization project, before the implementation or after the implementation, there's a potential, there's an opportunity to measure the performances in terms of the time, because time is always associated with the cost. Accordingly, in view of the time saving, we can get some ideas regarding the benefits in terms of the time and the cost.
Okay, thanks very much, Mr. Sunil Jaratna. And Namal, how we are traveling with time?
Yes, Dr. Kiridena, I think since we have been on for like 4.5 hours, I think we'll have to soon
I think
wrap up.
we would,
yeah.
Yeah, I would probably, I would probably wrap up it all at this stage. But before that, can we run the second poll, which would only take 2 minutes, please? Yeah. Namal, can you hear me?
Yes, it's launched.
Yeah, it's all good. Yeah, I can see it.
Only the attendees can see the poll. The panelists cannot. Yeah.
Ah, I see. I see. All right then.
Yeah.
But panelists cannot see the poll. Did you say?
The panelists cannot participate in the poll. Actually, it's only the attendees who can. Yeah.
I see.
So I think,
then,
I think we'll end the poll. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I think the poll, like the sample size is too small for the poll to be valid, I guess. So I'll probably declare that invalid. So let's close that and move on. So I think we have really run over time here. So we have had a number of other questions that we wanted to put to the panel as well, but unfortunately, I think we will have to conclude the Q&A session here. So I do really appreciate everyone's contribution. I think we were able to actually draw some really useful insights through the Q&A session as well. Also to clarify a number of things that the audience wanted to get clarified. So I really appreciate, and I thank you everyone for your time and for your contribution to make this event such a success. And more formally, as part of concluding this session, I would like to just quickly, if you don't mind, I'll just spend 2 more minutes trying to show a couple of things and more formally conclude the presentation. Let me just bring up my PowerPoint slides. The very last slide this is, I promise you. And just based on this workshop and based on the work that we have already done as part of this broader research project, this is what we are planning to do moving forward. We are quite keen to be able to conduct a couple of benchmarking studies, and we are exploring the possibility of contacting Singapore Airport and Dubai Airport through our current context. But also we are looking to connect with another port or two, if possible, outside that region, and be able to conduct a benchmarking study. We have already developed a framework for assessing or evaluating the processes, port logistics processes, and then analyzing and improving those processes based on a formal or systematic approach, which we're going to use for this benchmarking study. And then we intend to complete the current research project within the next year and a half, which is NAMAL is leading. It is optimizing CBL or cross-border logistics processes in an industry for environment. And you could see that how this kind of workshops could actually inform that research. And then also moving forward, we want to be able to disseminate the findings of this study. And we aim to undertake that through industry reports and forums like this, and also eventually some scholarly publications, peer-reviewed publications. And moving forward, we would also like to extend our current research project to cover hinterland logistics, and also possibly developing a digitalization blueprint for the Colombo port or the Sri Lankan ports, with possible international collaborations as well. So I would again, while thanking everyone for taking part in this workshop and being such an enormous help to us in terms of developing further insights into the logistics processes, I would really bank on your support moving forward as well. So hopefully we would be able to meet up again within the next year or so, and share our experiences with each other, and also get to know what the progress of the project is. And with that commentary or concluding remarks, I won't be acknowledging individual contributions particularly because of the time constraint, but I would just once and for all acknowledge everyone's contribution to this workshop. Thank you very much, and I will pass it over to Namal for a formal conclusion of the session, I guess. Would Namal be okay with that?
Yes, yes. Thank you very much, Dr. Kiridena. I need to personally thank on behalf of the organization committee to everyone who has been here with us for over 4 hours, and it's late, so I will not again, like what Dr. Kiridena mentioned, I will not try to thank each one individually. So when the invitations were handed out and when we invited resource persons, everyone was happy to take part in the workshop, and all the gentlemen in this workshop. So unfortunately, we don't have any ladies. These are gentlemen are all very busy individuals, and they are all in very senior positions. So we understand it's not easy to take time out from your busy schedules for such a long duration. So I'm very humbled by the presence of the entire panel for the entire duration of the event. So on behalf of the organizing committee, I apologize for any inconvenience caused during the planning and execution of the workshop. I sincerely hope that your time has been very well spent, and you were able to gain some useful inputs. And like what Dr. Kiridena mentioned, we hope to continue this dialogue in the future and engage with each of you in our future research work to advance digitalization process from Port of Colombo and more broadly in general. So thank you very much for being with us. Hope to see you soon again.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Thank you, Namal.
This marks the end of our agenda for today. Thank you very much for your active participation, and we hope to see you tomorrow. Have a nice rest of your day. Thank you.